Good morning. The COT data video for the week beginning the 10th of June 2024. We can see the Euro FX has definitely risen, so I think we probably should be looking for longs versus the dollar. However, that being said, we've got a very busy week this week for the USD. We've got the CPI, FOMC, and then we've got PPI the following day. So we may see a strong dollar, okay, because obviously we had that strong NFP. That's going to change the projections around cut, hike scenarios. And of course, the FOMC is going to be pretty massive, especially with the CPI before and then PPI the following day. And also, we can see the dollar has ticked higher as well, just slightly. We are positive, but we're going sort of slowly upwards. This is a very strong upward move. This is just calm and quite patient. All right, so could be a little bit dangerous, the dollar move, and we may be seeing some resistance up here potentially for the euro. However, if we look at it like a snapshot, we should be looking for longs on the euro over the USD. However, I think this week is going to be very pivotal for the USD, and it could definitely bolster the dollar going forward as well, pending the data this week. So we've got to be quite careful, especially with the USD. We may see a strong dollar, or we may see a very weak dollar, pending the outcome of that data. Actually, no, we'll keep euro on, but we'll look at yen. And also we've got the Bank of Japan as well. So that's of note. Very big week. That's at the end of the week, the BOJ. Slightly higher from the week prior. Yeah, it's still negative, but we didn't break this low, so that's possibly positive. But we've got a long way to go before we get above zero. But that's a little bit choppy, but at least we didn't break that low, so that's of note. And the Bank of Japan is going to be quite interesting, I think, this week. Aussie, pretty much sideways, really. Yeah, just ever so slight is an increase of 2,000 short positions for the non-coms. So a little bit sideways, to be fair. Yen ticked higher, Aussie ticked down. Aussie off, pound on. Pound's really surged, like the euro. But like the euro, we could be hitting some resistance as well, potentially. Up here, for example. And this lower high, lower low scenario that resulted in this big move. There's going to be a little bit of resistance here as well. So yeah, could be a bit tricky, I think, this with the dollar this week, and we could probably be overdue a little bit of a breather on risk appetite as well. CAD down. We are breaking that low. I think 908. Yeah, we are. We are just breaking that low. So quite negative on CAD. Okay, and if this continues southward and yen continues this direction, we'll get the CAD yen sell. Okay, but we've got a little way before we get the crossover. CAD's fallen due to the oil. The oil was falling quite heavily, but now it's pumping. So we may be trying to carve a bottom on this potentially. Gold on. Gold's off note because there was some rumour about the Bank of China. They've stopped buying their regular purchases of gold, and we've really fallen. This hasn't reflected that macro because this is from Tuesday. We have to remember this data that we see is from back here, and that data, that news, that rumour came out post Tuesday. So it came, around after. And if that is true, then it's going to send a little bit of a headwind for gold, because then it's going to have to face the US Treasuries, and we can see they've been on the back foot, but they could well be due a return back to like the norm, because we've seen back-to-back selling on the US Treasuries, and eventually they'll stop. It's free fall. And then it'll perk up. Once they're perked up, gold's going to fall. I'll show you what I mean. Perhaps show you if I come to Discord, and While that's loading, I'll just show you. Go to the next one. Gold off and New Zealand dollar on. We are just slightly above the USD, ever so slightly, 7,000. So from a COT perspective, a New Zealand dollar, US dollar long would be okay. But because we've got the CPI, the FMC, the PPI, I'd be very careful. It could actually be, they could be very good trades to short the dollar and then buy the New Zealand dollar, but as long as you're careful. And obviously, if we're risk on this week, which is possible, then that's going to aid that idea. So let's come to the US Treasuries. And where are we? There we go. And so basically, US yields negative, 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 negative. Eventually, that's going to stop. And once it makes a turn round, then gold's going to possibly suffer against that macro about China. They're stopping to their purchasing, and if these go green, it's going to tell us that the safe haven, the big fish, are going to probably prefer US Treasuries over gold, and it won't have much back in. Really, technically it's strong, but fundamentally it could fall. Gold, that is. Okay, so we're probably overdue a buck on that trend because it's just negative, 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 negative. Very unusual to have sequential trend. So normally we flip flop, and but we haven't flip flopped here. So I think eventually this is gonna just pause and then like turn around basically. And once they do, it's going to send a little bit of a headwind for gold. And we have to keep an eye on those levels that have been put into Discord. Mr. Bosch has put in the weekly open, the 200 MAs, and all sorts of juicy information that we can work with. But we find that it does return to its weekly open quite a bit, and it has a bounce. So it does like a flush, then like the real move. So we could see a big move on gold this week as well. So really you could look for NZD, USD longs, but I'd still be a bit careful. But we have had a crossover here. And then lastly, Swiss franc. And it's really fallen. Okay, so 40,000 to 45,000. So breaking that range, which obviously should be quite clear. I didn't know if we ever would, to be honest with you, because it just went on and on and on for ages. And then we're breaking those lows, and we're actually breaking down even more. So pending that this resumes its downtrend, we'll get the Swiss yen, the Swiss franc yen sell set up, but we've got a long way before the crossover. So just to recap, is that we've got a really, really busy week. And of course, we have to remember about the elections as well. They're going to send a lot of turbulence, around the world, especially the US elections. It's possible the UK elections is going to be quite turbulent as well, and quite uncertain. So obviously we've got the press conference there, so that's going to be huge. And then we've got some Aussie data, and then we've got the PPI again, and then we've got the BOJ. So you probably want to be really careful with the yen exposure going into that, because they could signal something, and then we're going to see a big move. And that's it. So could be a huge week for the dollar, or it could be more of the same, and we could see this potentially continue, which would be unusual, but it can happen. But normally what happens is that we flip-flop on these. So this would be fairly normal. So like for example, green, red, then green, then green, and green, red, green, But at the moment, the last week, it was a solid red. So I think we're probably due a flip. And if so, gold could fall. So be careful with that. And I'll speak to you guys soon.